there's something very important. I think it's very important that you mentioned that the effort that you were putting in was what the results were that you were getting out. It's kind of like, for a horrible example to be corny because of what we're talking about, like you put in crappy ingredients, you're probably going to get a crappy cake or pie or cookies, right? But the better the ingredients you put in, assuming you don't burn them in the oven, the better the product that's going to be out there. But I think that is very, very important because a lot of times people, they're looking for the quick get rich quick schemes or like the shortcuts to get there, and they might work in the short term, but they're not going to be long term benefits because you're not putting in the effort. So I think that's a very important fact. Or yeah, it's a fact. It's a very important fact that I want people to pick up on, that you dropped very casually. It could have been glanced over. But that sounds great. So I want to share with you why I wanted to have you come back on the podcast, because as we were talking about, the episode a year ago was one of the first episodes on All About Your Benjamins under this kind of new show at the time, The Pursuit. I had no idea back then that The Pursuit would turn into Pursuit, which would turn into its own brand, which would turn into On Our Pursuit. But the reason I want to have you back on is everything that Pursuit stands for: following your passions, aligning your spirit, mind, body, and money. You embody that with what it is that you're building. Now, I have the luxury of knowing you personally, to know that that is how you are, which we see on social media. But some of the other things are you've taken a risk, which we covered in the last episode. And if there's any new risks that you've taken over the last year or so that you want to highlight, just to kind of share the experience and inspire people, I definitely want to hear about those. And in that taking on the risk, you bet on yourself. You left a job where you had a steady paycheck and it was safe, if you will, to go bet on yourself. And ultimately, you're doing something that you're passionate about. And for anybody watching it on YouTube, you can see Lauren listen to me, and she's engaged, but then as soon as she starts talking about what it is she's doing, she lights up. Like, that's passion, and it can't be faked. So when I think of you, like, I think of everything that you embody, it is Pursuit, which is why I wanted to have you come back, because I think your story, how you've approached it, what you're doing, the hustle behind it, will inspire people to maybe take some more time to reflect on the passions in their life and see how could they slowly introduce it, which leads me to my next question. Slowly introducing it, again, without revisiting the whole last episode, how did you begin to slowly introduce becoming your own business and your own chef and your own brand into your life? I know that was kind of like a sudden thing, but still, whether it's new things you're doing, adding different approaches to serving your clients, how do you slowly introduce things before you kind of go harder into them?
That's a good question. So in the beginning, it was kind of like just pulling at any direction to try to get my footing. Everybody in my world, for the most part, knows or knew then that I was a chef, but they didn't think that anything beyond that, because I was always in the restaurant and working for somebody. So I never had to sell myself in a way where I wanted to come into your home and cook for you or be your chef. I was just a chef. So I had to really dial into getting that out there. And obviously leaving a job that I was with for almost 10 years and all of that, I did the whole announcement and things that you have to do to kind of let all your people know that, you're no longer with that company, purveyors, and so many relationships that I've built. So I did that, post that everyone does when they leave a thing or something. And then from there, I was just like, what do I do now? So then I had to realize that I had to change all my personal social media accounts, either change them or in addition to have a business one as well. So I have a Facebook business page. I just turned my Instagram account, the one that I had there, into my business one. And then I built a personal one because the one that I was actually operating from was more in line with my business. So I did that. And then I just did a personal one where I put all my nieces and nephews and pictures of clouds and stuff like that. But I started building social media accounts just built around my business and what I wanted my business to look like, or what I thought that it would look like in the future. So like I said, I was building it from the ground up. I didn't really even know. And step by step, things just started changing. I started adding new services. I started changing the way, the format of the way I did things. And then it kind of all just went from there.
How much of what you were building was what you were building to? And we could use the word manifesting, the future version of it, or how much was it of this is what I want? I guess, did you really have this vision, or were you kind of this is what I think I want?
Yeah, I didn't have the vision of being a personal chef. I had the vision of no longer working in another restaurant or for a larger company ever again. I always knew once I left that last job that I wanted to have my work for myself and have my own business. And then that was what I would say that Chef Lauren was the conduit to building my own business. And Chef Lauren is my business right now. I would say the end game then, and I might change a little bit, but the end game then was having like a brick and mortar place, the Tiny Onion. And that's how it kind of all began. Like I needed to just get to that part. And then as I'm moving along, I started to find my niche in what I'm doing now. And I do think that this is where I want to stay for a while. But I would say the Tiny Onion, like having a spot, is definitely my end game, but it has been pushed back, I would say, a little bit. Just due to the success of what I'm doing now and what I didn't think was possible. And I do think that ultimately this is just going to catapult me into just having a spot where I stay all the time. But now like I'm meeting new people, I'm going into your homes, I'm becoming a part of the family. Like the relationships I'm building are amazing. I really did want to start traveling so I can come to you. And I can start doing that maybe, next year and start building that back into my business plan. Like, 2020 did kind of derail that a little bit. And then I would say 2020 probably even derailed the brick and mortar. I know there's a lot of places that survived, a lot of places that were built because of it. And I would say my business as a in-home personal chef thrived from 2020, and I decided to kind of keep that going. And I'm really happy where I'm at. And I think the end game of the Tiny Onion, the actual spot, because my whole business is the Tiny Onion Chef Consulting Services. I think that is still somewhere out in the ether of where I will end up.
I think this is really cool. I think this is really cool because it highlights that we have these plans of where we want to go and what we want to do. And we have this vision and we plan and we kind of take actions towards getting that. And then, the universe sometimes has other plans. And again, going back to things we can control. You couldn't control 2020, out of our control. What you could control was how you handled it, how you received it, and how you moved forward. And what you've shown is that if you take the crap that comes with you, make the lemonade with the lemons that are given to you, that good things can happen. And what may end up happening, and what I'm excited to follow along, not just because you're my friend, but follow on just to see, is that, okay, does this vision of Tiny Onion that once was, that you had in the past, is that the way it plays out? Or do you have your Tiny Onion one day, but it's a way that you never could have imagined? And what's success? Is success only if Tiny Onion is a physical brick and mortar place? Or is success if Tiny Onion exists, giving you the ability to bring your services and do the things you love to the people you love working with, and maybe it's in a different format? And I'm in the camp of, I don't think we should get too fixated on that image of what we think it's supposed to be, because I think sometimes we get where we want to be, but if we're so fixated on this image, we miss the fact that we actually achieved our goal because it doesn't look exactly like we thought it was going to look. So I think that this is good for people to hear, is that it doesn't always have to go exactly as you planned. And if you are fluid and flexible enough to be able to move with things, then you keep on moving forward. It's when we kind of give up because things don't go as planned that we have the setbacks.
No, I completely agree. I think the ability to pivot is probably one of the strongest attributes of a entrepreneur or just a person in general, but definitely someone that's trying to build something or move towards some sort of goal. Being able to pivot through adversity and pivot at all, and keep that same energy that you had with your original idea that you thought was going to be so great, or your original desire end game, and just kind of keep that same thing and push it through to whatever's happening. I think is super important, and that's what I noticed has been happening with me.